Back on August 5th, 2020, we released an episode called Search for Shoes. That episode, we got to hear from a representative named Tracy from Samaritan's Feet. But it broke my heart to know that more than 1.5 billion people are affected by a parasitic disease that are transferred by contaminated soil because they don't have proper footwear. That shoes, they can help prevent against diseases, they can help protect against diseases, they can even help our economic and educational opportunities because we have proper footwear. They can also help an individual pursue their dreams. So if you're wanting to know more about Samaritan's Feet, do so right now. Jump right over to SamaritansFeet.org. But let me give you some crazy numbers to think about. $50 provides a brand new pair of shoes and a message of hope to 2 children. $100 provides a message of hope and shoes for 4 children. This holiday season, as you consider how you spend your money and where you spend it, can I just ask you to consider giving a financial gift to Samaritan's Feet right now? Again, if you're interested in doing that, please visit SamaritansFeet.org. Thank you so much for listening, and Merry Christmas.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. This is Neil, of course, with Other People's Shoes. Isn't it exciting today? I love show day. Who doesn't love show day? Raise your hand. No, actually don't. That might hurt my feelings just a little bit. But you know what wouldn't hurt my feelings a little bit? If you jumped on over to your favorite social media of choice, whether that be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just give us a little like, a little follow, a little tweet, whatever it may be. And if you feel even more compelled to show some love and affection, I think Nelson sang that song so many years ago. You know, the long-haired blonde guys? Yeah, love and affection. Anyway, I digress. Jump on over to opspodcast.com and just drop us a review or leave a voicemail or just drop a comment of what you love. We would love to hear that. Help me welcome in our guest today. Always love it when we have a fellow podcaster. I don't know why, but I do love podcaster conversations. It just feels a little more homey and more fun. So anyway, help me welcome in my friend, my new friend even. He's, of course, the host of Beyond the Rut Podcast, helping Christian men pursue their dream without compromising their faith, their family, and their health. His episodes, much like mine, I think are inspiring stories. They're insightful. They just do amazing things, right? A show can really do that. It can transform you. Jerry did spend most of his life growing up through divorce, a suicide attempt by his father. He's been just around the world, really. He has some army background to him, and I'm just super excited to sit with him today, helping us hopefully get out of the rut that we are in, the Beyond the Rut. And of course, we're going to hear all about that. We're going to ask him the the 2 most important questions this season. So help me welcome him in. Jerry, how are you today?
I am doing great, Neil. Hey, the other thing about having podcasters on your show, it's vice versa, it goes the same way, is we bring our own microphones. Yeah.
That is true, because I do have guests that come on from time to time, and the mic is, I'm not going to lie, it is a challenge. And so it is great to have shared audio engineering, I guess we could say, going on, right?
There we go. Yep. If anything, I'm bringing you good sound quality today.
That's the best part. Absolutely. So Jerry, I'm super excited, as I said, to have you on today. Just excited because I don't feel like I know you very well. And I feel like that's a great opportunity really to get to know you better and just what you're all about. So that's fun too.
Awesome. Same here. I'm looking forward to this. We've crossed paths a lot through mostly Christian Podcasters Association. And I think I've seen you pop up a couple of times in podcast movement community. We've done a couple of group calls together, but we never actually get to engage like this. So this is really cool. I love this.
I'm excited. We're going to have to send you a new shirt though, because I'm not a fan of red, which is really weird. I don't know why. I just have never been a fan of red. So we're going to have to get you maybe a light blue shirt. I don't know if you're opposed to light blue in any way. Some people are.
I'm up for it. Yeah, most of my t-shirts are like the color of this background. I've got this gray color or white or dark blue. And my wife was like, Jerry, you need some other colors. And so I just got this red, asked me about my podcast t-shirt. And yeah, I'm gradually starting to introduce new colors into my shirt game, I guess. So yeah.
All right. Well, just make sure our wives never talk, because my wife wants me to expand my color palette as well. As you might imagine, a lot of my shirts are light blue. and they
man.
probably have like an N and a C in somewhere on them. So there we are. Yeah, fun
There
stuff.
you go.
So,
Tar Heels, right?
yeah, big Tar Heels fan. Yeah, we said this in the green room, and it was kind of fun to laugh about. But you're the second Jerry we've had on this season, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure kind of on you in this moment because the first Jerry we had was fantastic, great guest, amazing stuff. And so, I mean, not to put pressure on you, but when I think of the name Jerry, I think of Jerry Rice, old San Francisco 49er wide receiver who was amazing. And I'm not going to say he was the GOAT because I think that was Steve Largent, but pretty close. But I'm just telling you right now, there is some pressure on you, Jerry. So you got to bring that A game. So I hope you're ready.
All right. Do my best.
All right.
Now, I don't think the other Jerry I actually didn't meet Jerry Rice either. I did get to see Jerry Rice in training camp, T98. Oh, man. Yes, guys, I am old. So I graduated from University of the Pacific. San Francisco 49ers had just contracted with UOP to use our campus for their summer workouts, which meant if you were still on campus taking summer school like I was, you can go see them work out at the end of the summertime. And the only reason why I bring this up is because his work ethic was phenomenal. I think around that time, Terrell Owens was a rookie. And so you'd see a couple of guys are doing their routes. The quarterbacks are throwing them passes, or the coaches are somebody's throwing them passes and they're catching them. And like Terrell Owens, he'd catch his pass, he'd run like 5 or 6 steps and kind of throw the ball down and kind of jog on back to the line. And a lot of the other receivers did that. But then there was one receiver who caught the ball and sprinted all the way down to the end zone and then brought the ball back and then handed it to somebody and got back in line. And I was like, who's that guy? And then I saw the name on the back and it was Rice. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's why the guy's a team captain. I mean, he didn't just do that one time to show up Terrell. He did that every single pass during that practice that went on for like an hour. Caught the ball, sprinted to the end zone. Caught the ball, sprinted to the end zone. And seeing him do that, it made me think about, a lot of folks kind of just like catch the ball and say, okay, good, I'm done. And here's this guy who is successful because every time he catches the ball, he's got his eye on the end zone, the goal. And I'm like, man, so anyway, just throwing that out there. First volley. Boom.
I love it. No, I love it a lot. And I have heard his training regimen. I mean, it's unfathomable in some of the things that he would do in the mountains he would run and just things like that. Crazy stuff. So, no.
Yeah. And he almost won Dancing with the Stars.
He almost won Dancing with the Stars. I didn't even know that. So there you go. So Jerry, getting into your stuff, I love asking people this question because I think it really sets the foundation for the show, right? It really does. So Jerry, we got to ask this. We got to know this. So Jerry, what size shoes do you wear?
And I've got Hobbit feet, so 9.5 extra wide. And I say that because I'm 5'4", so I should have a size shoe that's around 8, maybe 7. But no, I got my dad's feet. He's like 5'10", so 9.5 extra wide. Those are hard to come by, so I wind up getting a size 10. Looks even goofier. So there we go. The curse of a short guy with big feet.
That's awesome. Please tell me you're not wearing New Balance shoes. But what size or what style? Excuse me. What style or brand are we rocking these days?
Oh man, it depends on the occasion. So for work, I've got some Sperry's that just slip on. So when I get home, I can just kick them off. Now in Texas, it's hot, so lots of flip-flops. But ideally, because I like to backpack, but I don't like heavy boots, I wear Nike Flyknits. There we go. Because they're versatile. I can run them. They look kind of cool, so I can hang out with my kids, and then I go hiking, and I don't have heavy boots.
Nice. Nike Flyknits. That's fun. I haven't heard that one yet, so that's fun. Okay. All right. That's good stuff. All right. So, Jerry, getting into you even more deeper, as we say, the dolphin dive, right? Diving below the water. I'm perplexed by this question because I'm getting such an array of answers and such an array of people's almost emotional response to this question. And I didn't even know that, like starting out, I threw it off on a couple of people that I trust, and some of these people too, the Eric Nevins of the world and some other people. And I just said, hey, I'm thinking about new season, here we go. Here's going to be our topic. Cause we always like to go in seasons. I just think that's fun as a podcaster. You can kind of switch gears and kind of keep the show kind of relevant and more exciting. And I said, I'm thinking about asking people this question, like, are you enough? And people were responding like, oh my gosh, I have not felt like I'm not enough. I have a moment where I felt like I wasn't enough. I have this that and it just kept compiling. I'm like, man, I might be on to, we're talking 49ers. I might have struck gold without even knowing it with this question. And so, Jerry, I'm going to ask you the same thing we've kind of been asking everybody as we lead off these shows. And that's this. Has there been a moment where you felt like, man, I just wasn't enough?
Man, because there's a lot of occasions. So that's where I'm just kind of like thinking that through. I would say there's one thing that definitely, I don't know if it haunts me to this day, but it does remind me that I should not sit on my laurels. And that is a stark reminder I got in a training event before the invasion of Iraq. So I'm with the 3rd Infantry Division. I'm a medic. And up to this point, a medic's job is pretty chill. You learn how to do some medical stuff. Nobody ever gets hurt. And everybody lets you rest a lot. And so that was no different. We're in Kuwait. We're waiting to invade. And out of nowhere, our physician assistant, our battalion surgeon, drives up to where I am and says, "Hey, Sergeant Dugan, we're going to go and just kind of check out one of the vehicles and kind of see how everybody's doing. When's the last time you walked around and rounded on the troops?" And I said, "Well, I was just shooting the breeze with them about an hour ago." "Great, let's go on over." Turns out the guy set up a training scenario for me. So we get up to this vehicle and dudes are kind of like draped all over the place. And he turns to me and says, "All right, this vehicle just got hit by an artillery round. You're the only medic on scene. What do you do?" And I was not ready for that. I'm like, And so I'm like, "Well, obviously we got to pull the people out." He goes, "Well, this whole cabin's on fire. So the only way you can get in there is through that top part." I'm like, I never had to climb this vehicle. It was an armored artillery shell carrier, ammo carrier. I'd never touched that vehicle. So now I got to figure out on the fly, how do I get on this vehicle? And I get to the top. And of course, the guy at the top is the heaviest guy in this particular crew. I'm 5'4". I weigh about 160 pounds at the time. And I'm pulling the guy who's like 6 foot tall, 300, almost like he's like 260, maybe 250. I got to lift him up out of the hatch. And he's been told be dead weight. So in the end, I do get them all out, but they're all pretty much dead. And he lets me know, "Hey, this is what my assessment is of you. You're not prepared. And here's why. You didn't know this vehicle. You didn't know all the different hatches on this vehicle. You could have actually got this guy down through this side hatch. And you got to be in better shape. I mean, yeah, you're little, but that guy over there could lift this big guy up easily." And I was just like, okay. That just stuck with me, that I was never going to be caught unprepared ever again. Because this was in front of like 100 guys. They all watched Doc. "This is Doc. Yeah, Doc's got this. Doc's not getting this. Doc's letting us die. Doc can't lift that dude up." And so it was meant to be a confidence boost, but also a challenge. It put everybody on edge. Like, okay, Doc's got to do some push-ups. We got to let Doc get to know these vehicles. So I think that's probably the most recent time I felt like I wasn't enough. There've been other times where I've been challenged. I just kind of suck it up and remember that moment and move on.
How humiliating was that experience?
Oh, big time, because I've known this unit for almost 2 years. So they'd seen me on field exercises. They've seen me perform in the classroom when I went through training. They'd see me get awards, maybe not a lot of awards, but they'd see me get recognized. They see me, get promoted. Here I am in my moment where I'm supposed to shine and I'm failing dismally. So it was an eye opener for everybody, but mostly for me.
So fast forward, you're going into, I'm imagining now you've gone into Kuwait. Was it the first Gulf War or was it this?
The second one. So this is in 2003.
Okay, yeah. The most recent one. Okay. That's the one that we actually got Saddam. So it's kind of exciting for me, at least, because a Marine found Saddam. My dad's a former Marine, so it was
nice.
Exciting for me that the Marines found him, not the Army. Just, sorry, a little rivalry going on there. We found him, you didn't.
They did cordon it off. No kidding.
We didn't play with Army men as kids. We played with Marines. So I'm just saying.
There you go.
But the reason why I bring that up is I have heard people say that combat is like nothing other. There's nothing on this planet that can ever prepare you, get you ready. There's not enough training in the world that really, when it all hits the fan, whatever it is, there's nothing that can prepare you for that.
Yeah.
So knowing that you kind of had this immediate, like, just obviously awful moment, right? Embarrassing moment. I mean, embarrassing doesn't even seem to cover it. Humiliating, feels more appropriate. Did you at all question yourself as you went into battle? Like, are these guys still thinking in the back of their mind, is Doc got us? Because clearly over here, when it wasn't real, he didn't have us. And now that it's going to get real, is he going to have us? Did you ever wrestle with that, or maybe have anyone say anything to you about that?
Now, the rest of my unit was very forgiving. I mean, they saw it. It was the moment. A couple of guys kind of picked me up and said, "Hey, it's okay, Doc. You finally got a taste of our medicine." So the combat arms guys, when they do their training, it's all towards a lose-lose scenario. So the opposition force, when you go into training, we don't always know where they are, but they always know where we are, our numbers, our capabilities, our plans are even fed to them. So they have the upper hand, plus the observer controllers are on their side. So every training scenario that we do on the combat side is to lose. And from that, you learn where your weak points are and so on. Now, on the medical side of things, it's not always the case. When we train, it's almost always a successful outcome, and we go back and we look at the processes that we went through. So this was probably the first time I actually got faced with a lose-lose scenario. Like, there was no way I was going to save all those guys. Like, it was going to be awesome if I could save just one of them. By the way that it later on reflection, just by the way that scenario was evolving as it went, it would have been a miracle to save one of them. And so it was just a test of how I would handle it, how I would adjust under fire, think on my feet, and then at the same time kind of be that lesson of you really do need to know these vehicles. So, but I did go in, thinking through everything I'd ever learned though. So it was that wake up call, like, okay, gosh, we're, it's like 18 hours from now, we're going to cross this minefield. I've got to trust that the engineers who plowed through this minefield gave us a big enough lane to go through. But if somebody veers off course and gets blown up, I got to start thinking through, like, how do I get to that guy who's in the vehicle who's blown up? So, if it's a minefield, how do I get that guy out of the minefield? How do I treat the person? How do I call in a 9-line medevac? Where is my aid bag right now? Ah, dang it. There it is. And I'm going through all these like motions in my head. And, in the movies, they make war look like it's just nonstop action like Black Hawk Down, but it was a lot of boredom with intermittent fire for our artillery unit. And so I had a lot of time to think and reflect and kind of prepare myself mentally. Yeah, that one training lesson did rattle me for a very long time.
What possesses someone like such as yourself to really say, yeah, I'm going to go fight for our country. I'm going to go put my life on the line. What motivated Jerry to sign up and do that?
I was a pre-med student because as I was growing up, my mom always said, you're going to grow up, get good grades, become a doctor, join the army, that kind of thing. And by the time I got out of high school, I was like, I'm not going to join the military. They just kill people. And I don't want to bring war to the people. I want to bring peace and love and healing. So I still was a pre-med student. Deep down inside, though, turns out I did not want to be a doctor. And I, looking back, realized I self-sabotaged or I sabotaged my own grades. So I graduated with like a 2.3 GPA while tutoring my classmates who got 3.5 and higher. So it's like, it was the thing that boggled my faculty advisor's mind. Like, how are you getting tutored by Jerry? He didn't tell them my grades, but I could see it in his face. Like, how are you tutoring people to pass classes that you're failing yourself? I was broke. I barely got out of college. I needed some work experience to offset my bad grades because I still had it in my head I was going to be a doctor. And I wanted to travel. A lot of my friends were graduating from college and getting office jobs. Already I could see that they hated it. And we, ran into people who graduated ahead of us, and they just kept saying, enjoy these years because when you get into the workforce, you're just going to work nonstop. I haven't traveled in 4 years, and I'm thinking, I want to travel. I want to see the world. And so I did the one thing my dad said not to, which was join the army because there'd be a paycheck. They would pay me to get trained. They'd pay me to get some experience, and they'd pay me to travel the world. There you have it. They took me in. They kind of duped me a little bit. They tried to get me to go as an infantryman, and in the end, I wound up going in as a medic.
Well, being, a Marine kid or an MK, some might even say, my dad always told me, how do you know when a recruiter's lying? And it's kind of a joke, and their mouth is moving. I'll just give the punchline. For those that don't get it, you're like, what? I don't understand. Ask somebody in the military, they'll get a good kick out of that joke. So there's a good joke for you. Takeaway already. Go ahead and take that away. Use that, tweet that, whatever you want to do. But again, I'm fascinated by people that sign up. I'm always curious of the motivation behind it. I did not sign up. I did not want to go. I was not forced to go. Of course, my dad never put pressure on us to go or not to go. However, I always wondered what my life would have been like had I gone. I think it would have been strikingly different.
Oh, yeah.
I just am always fascinated by that. In that moment of failure, of not feeling like enough, did that snowball into other areas of life? Or was that just an isolated anomaly? Jerry's never felt like that ever again moment, and now he's this rock star podcaster now.
I always feel good. No, kidding. No one's ever said that except now. Now, yes, I'm taking it. I think that was probably one of the last times I allowed myself to not feel like I'm enough or to feel like I'm not enough. There was another incident when I was younger, like 11 years old, and that's when my dad was suicidal. And it was my brother. He was 9. I was 11, trying to keep him from succeeding. And one day while he was on my watch, he almost succeeded. So that definitely had haunted me for the longest time. I guess compounding that with this training exercise that I failed dismally, that kind of compounded. So that's a big part of that driver, that almost savior complex. Like, I got to stay vigilant. I got to stay serious. I got to get back on my A game because people's lives depend on me. And at the same time, like, I wasn't expecting to come out of that war, Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I remember overhearing some of our leaders out of a planning session. We were expecting, I think, 25 to 30% casualties And I was just kind of doing the math in my head and kind of remembering like the early days of my medic training. They have you watch this video about the history of the medical corps and how medics became a part of the Army, and that of all the jobs in the military, in the Army specifically, of all the jobs in the Army, the medics have the highest number of posthumously awards given than any other job in the Army. And so here I am thinking, wow, 25 to 30% casualty rate. I'm in the field that has the most posthumously given awards. I'm not going home. I'm going to die. And I wasn't a Christian yet. Again, on the night that the war's kicking off, we're told to get in our chemical suits and do say a prayer. And it was just like, God, if you're real, you better replace me with somebody who's better than me, who's going to love my wife better than I love her and love my children as if they were his own children. That's all I'm asking of you. Peace out. I didn't say peace out, but it was something like that. I didn't say amen because I didn't want it to be a prayer. God forbid I prayed. I'm an agnostic or an atheist. But I just put it out there just to cover all my bases. So then I just went back to that serious mode of no one's going to die on my watch. And I'm going to keep it together. I'm going to be on the ball. So I go through the war effort. I go home and I'm just like, well, God, I didn't have to live up to my part of the bargain. Or, I guess you don't have to, you're off the hook because I made it. Not understand that whole, turns out I'm going to be made a new creation a couple years later. I think that was the big shift for me was when I did receive Jesus into my heart and become a Christian. That was in 2005. So I'm in the Iraq invasion in 2003. I get out of the Army at the end of 2003. And then mid 2005, I received Jesus. So yeah, that just set a whole new transformation in me that helped me balance that. Yeah, still strive for excellence. That's still a big part of me is to do my best, to live my best life. You only live once here, so make the best of it. But then to give myself some grace that I don't have to be perfect. I'm not expected to be perfect, and I'm human. So I am going to make mistakes and just forgive myself for that. So I think that was the biggest shift for me was to become a Christian. And to really grasp that idea of forgiveness and grace, I think has allowed me to just let go and not worry about, it doesn't matter if I'm worthy or not or enough. I'm placed exactly where I need to be right now with the experience, the knowledge, and the skills that are needed right now. And I'll probably grow from this. Maybe somebody else will grow from this. And so that I think is where the feelings of not being adequate have kind of gone away. If I were to I've never had to think about that, dude. Thanks.
I'm just, kind of building the blocks here, and I'm not a good block builder. Maybe I hated Legos as a kid.
You're doing great.
I probably hit more kids with blocks than I built with them. So, there we are. I never was the erector set guy or the Lincoln Logs or Tinker Toys. So I was never really good at any of that stuff. And what's funny is my dad's a combat engineer. So, building should be in my DNA, right? And he used to sit and build models, as a kid, and we couldn't touch them. We could look at them. We couldn't touch them. But I'm not really good at building stuff, I guess, is the whole rant there to say this. So,
okay.
I don't even know what we're building here with you, Jerry, but I think I do. So kind of recapping what you're saying, I hear you as a young adolescent guy, not having a great role model as a dad. I mean, I'm not projecting. I mean, maybe your dad's the most amazing person on the planet, but if he's suicidal, chances are pretty good he probably didn't set a great role model. I don't know. Maybe I'm judging.
Yeah, overall, yes. At that season in his life, no. Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy that would give his shirt off his back for you and get the last $20 out of his pocket for you. But yeah, when it came to that, he just didn't know how to handle it, been in a serious relationship and know how to handle a breakup. And, his one relationship, he got dumped. And yeah. So, of course, I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who's forgiven him a long time ago.
But I'm hearing this as you say, Dad, to be on suicide watch for your dad. I mean, that's a kind of a serious thing. And then going forward, I would think as you failed in this scenario in Iraq, right before you guys go in, that's got to flash you back oh my gosh, here we go again. I'm on kind of quote unquote suicide watch. What if I fail again? Now obviously you didn't fail with your dad, but I mean, I would think that would just kind of compound. And then coming back, maybe there's still that little bit of you inside that says, am I enough? Because I'm projecting here. But then fast forward, you say you make a decision for Jesus. So somewhere along that way, you had to recognize even in your own heart, Jerry's not enough. He needs more. And so it reminds me of a quote, and we'll get to your quote because your quote's cool. This quote's cool too, but I think your quote's cooler than this maybe. So here's the quote I'm thinking of, and it's from an Oregon runner, Steve Prefontaine. It's actually one of my favorite quotes, and it's, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. So my question to you, in building all of that, whatever we were building, do you feel like in any moment in your life, you've really sacrificed the gift that you've been given?
Oh, man. No. I mean, I think there are moments where I'm not at my, best or my at peak performance, of course. But if there is a goal in my heart, if there's the goal that I've set my heart onto to go and achieve, I'm going after it. If I have a day where I just didn't cut the mustard or didn't meet the milestone, I just forgive myself, brush it off, and do it again. Just give it a shot the next day. And a big part of that is what gives me that confidence and that big okay is I wound up being the first in my family to go to college and finish college as well. And this was coming from an extended family that would tell me while I was growing up that books will never get you anywhere. Books will never get you a job. Fast forward, 30-ish years, and it's like, well, looks like books got me a master's degree and a pretty well-paying job and got me into some fields that I really love and enjoy and given me some experiences that I never would have gotten otherwise. When I tried out for football in high school, people kind of looked at me like, hey, you're kind of small. And I wound up playing offensive guard. Yeah, and it was fun. It just happened. I got a high school coach that loved having small, agile, technically sound guards. And he just loved pulling traps and sweeps. And I got a lot of running in, got to take out a lot of big guys. So a big confidence boost there. Like there aren't challenges that aren't achievable if you're willing to learn how to do it and go out and do it and just get it done. And so that does tend to drive me quite a bit. And yeah, even like something like podcasting, it's like I could just simply have stayed the way I've been doing it since I started, which was on a smartphone. My daughter and I started a podcast called Family Time Q&A. This was 8 years ago from the time we're recording this. And we just recorded it on my phone and then we uploaded it. We processed it a little bit with Auphonic and then we just uploaded it to Podbean. I think if you rest on your laurels, that's kind of how you always do it. Like, well, I've always done the show on my smartphone. Why would I want to upgrade? And it's like, no, what I've done is just kind of learn more and more and more. And I wanted to be good at this. I wanted to share other people's stories about their overcoming their ruts and their moments of feeling low or stuck. And because not everybody wants to listen to me because they kind of look at me and I'm nowhere near the levels of success that I wanted and I don't want to compare myself ever. But folks kind of look at me and like, oh, it must be nice to have everything handed to you. And I'm like, faced foreclosure. I lost count how many times from 2006 to about 2011. My dad was on food stamps. We haven't even talked about from when I was 11 to when I was 14, seeing my mom leave us and then seeing my dad attempt suicide. And then coming out of that thinking, we're in the clear, only to be bullied by my cousins and a couple of uncles until I was 14. So folks tend to see the happy-go-lucky Jerry, but they never see the darker, did you come through all that? Yeah, I don't waste the best that I've been given because I've come from a family where they weren't given their best. The dream among a lot of my cousins was I'll get emancipated when I'm 16 and I'll draw Social Security income. That's my dream. And I'll live in an apartment that the government provides. And I'm like, that's not a life. Having lived in Japan as a kid when my dad was in the army, there's a whole world out there, guys. Like, let's go see it. Let's make a difference in it. Again, having become a Christian, that's given me some purpose and becoming a parent also. There came a point where I realized I needed to be a better father and my own personal achievements aren't as important as it is how I'm pouring into my children. So there's a lot of things that motivate me to just give it my all, give it my best because people are watching. And more importantly, of all the people who are watching, my kids are watching. And if I fail, I've owned up and I've told them. In fact, we had a whole podcast that was about me being a normal, vulnerable, not perfect guy. And that was that Family Time Q&A podcast. Thanks for that rant.
I always try to listen to what you're not saying. And maybe that's too many years of, I used to work in collections for 5 years. And so I would always tease people that I'm looking for the truth within the lie. I'm not saying you're lying in this moment. Just to be clear, I don't want to offend. But when you're working collections, like people 90% of the time are probably lying to you in some respects. I'm just saying, that's just been my experience. So now I'm going to get hate mail. I'm not a liar.
I can't pay that in full, I swear.
You might be. You might not want to pay me, but you're paying somebody, But I say that because I would always listen for the truth within the lie. And so in that, I hear in your voice, my perception, that there's still some hurt from your mom. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you in any way feel like it was your fault that you couldn't keep them together as a child? Did you ever think that or feel that?
No, that part I don't. I think if there's any pain because of that divorce now, because my mom and I've had a series of conversations when I was in my 20s and going into my 30s. Because I think the sad part for me is that there's still a part of her that believes the lie she was told that convinced her to leave my dad. So I think to me, that's the sad part. Other than that, her relationship with me is very much healed. She has missed a lot of my life. I mean, I lived my life and I still am living my life. It saddens me because she left when I was 11, so she missed the small accomplishments when I was in middle school. Probably a good thing because, I mean, she's from Thailand, and I almost didn't pass 8th grade English. Asian mom, almost failed English. I would have been in big trouble. So I think in that respect, it was good that my parents were split. Past that, when I get to high school, so we get past middle school. In high school, there were a lot of accomplishments I was making in high school that sadly my mom missed because of the divorce. She lived in Alabama. And then ultimately she went to North Carolina. We were in California. That distance, she never came out to see us. We always had to go out to see her. So there was a lot of that she missed out on. That does make me sad. She's made up for it by being more plugged into my kids' lives. Not as much as my mother-in-law, more so than when I was growing up. Yes, I think those are probably the saddest moments. That I wouldn't call it pain, but just sad. It would have been nice if she was closer. Maybe not to me, but at least to my children. I could tell that there's pain in her voice of that loss of not seeing me grow up. I think my favorite was still getting the birds and bees talk when I was 23. So that was probably a uh-oh moment. Like, my mom still thinks I am like 11 or 12 because she's trying to talk to me about the birds and bees. This is embarrassing. This is awkward. And so how do I tell her this? But yeah, just a few years ago, though, she had made a comment about my dad having a girlfriend while they were still married. I'm like, no, you were married to my dad. Did you not see how socially awkward the guy is? So anyway, yeah, he's socially awkward. He is not a romantic guy at all, which is part of why they ultimately got divorced.
So you mentioned being an example and really trying to set that fatherly example, right? That's an important kind of pillar in your life and just a key component to who you are. Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, that definitely was that season from when I was 11 to 14. So, yeah, we talked about my dad and my mom had split up. We had just gone through that season where my dad was suicidal and he got the help he needed. But then to come back to the United States and be among my grandparents and some aunts and uncles and my cousins from 11 to 14, it's just seeing how, oh man, what's the way I wanted to say that? I had a couple of uncles also going through a divorce. There we go. Divorce was like common in that season in the Dugan family or the Dugan clan. A couple of those uncles did not handle it well at all. So one of those uncles wound up bullying my cousins and I, and he thought he was cool for it. And I'm thinking, gosh, this guy's in his late 30s, early 30s, and he thinks he's cool because he can pick on 11 and 12-year-olds. Like, there's nothing cool about that. Seeing the damage it had on his kids. His kids were like high IQ, high-performing kids. Then he and his wife had split up, and he's providing no stability for them. The way he's talking about women is very demeaning. His kids just drop fast, and they take on drugs and alcohol, and to this day, it still impacts their lives and they don't realize it. Another set of cousins, same thing. The dad had his wife leave and he went into depression. And so they're kind of reeling from that. And then there's my grandfather who, carpenter, hardworking man, painted airplanes during World War II. But I didn't notice it until I was a little bit older, like closer to 14. And then definitely really saw it when I was like 18, 19 years old, was that it wasn't good enough for him to be a hardworking man. He had to be better than his kids, and he let them know. My dad had borrowed some money from him. He let my dad know, hey, you wouldn't be in that apartment unless I had loaned this money to you. Hey, kids, do you know how much I loan your dad? And it's just like demeaning my dad in front of his own kids. So it gave me time to reflect and think over time, because just bored out of my mind in my grandparents' house, being picked on and seeing my grandfather be pretty much a jerk to my dad. Yeah, by 14, I just kind of drew a line in the sand. And a big part of it was because that one uncle who did pick on me, he and I got into a fight. I was like 14. He was definitely close to 40 by then. He was in one of his moods, and, we're being teenagers and being loud in the living room. And he just kind of came out and said something dumb like, the word to the wise is sufficient. And I was like, he always says that, but there's never a word that precedes that. And so I'm like, I'm just sick of this. Who is this guy? And so I just said, what word? Because I was done. I'm like, I am not going to be a part of this family anymore if this is where they're going. And I'm not going to be bullied by this guy anymore. That's for sure. And I'm a little guy. At this time, I'm like 4'10". I just turn at him like, what word? He goes, what? Half-breed? And I was like, seriously, what word? You say the word to the wise is sufficient, but there's never a word. How empty are you? And all my cousins, they had my back and then they didn't. And so they all kind of did that Wild West thing. There's going to be a shootout, and they spread apart. And now I'm on my own. And the guy puts me, starts choking me. And now I got to fight back because, I'm being choked out. But eventually I, just kind of violent back, and I'm screaming and I'm trying to claw at him. I'm kicking him in places that hurt. And my grandfather takes his side. And I'm just like, of course. Well, I don't want to be a part of this racist family. If you can't accept me because I'm the half-breed gook chink in this family, then I don't need to be here. and I walked out. What they don't know is I walked out the front door, and I immediately, because I had nowhere to go, like 150 miles away from my home, I just snuck into the garage and I hid in the garage for a couple hours until my dad came back to my grandpa's house. That was the moment when I realized and drew that line in the sand. I'm not following this family's footsteps. Where it is going is horrible and dark and hopeless. I've got friends back at school who have parents who are still together, who go on family vacations and they want to go. They may not be the best in school. Man, they've got something I'm missing. I want to know more about that. And so when my dad did show up and he did confront his family and said, my son doesn't have to be here anymore, I got to learn more about, the families that my friends had. Yeah, came across a couple of couples that were just good role models. When we were in Germany, by the way, after my dad was attempting suicide, we did stay with a foster family. So I had time to think about that family and how closely connected they were. And that was it. So 14 years old and drawing that line in the sand saying, I want that type of family where the husband and wife talk to each other like adults and they work things through, that they may not be rich, but they've got their finances in order to take care of what they have under their roof. Their kids may be the smartest, but they also have character. Or maybe they're not the brightest, but they still have character and work ethic. I want that in my children. They're following the example of their parents, but they don't feel like they can never measure up to their parents. So their parents are lifting them up and encouraging them to be better than, be who you are meant to be. And so I was just taking notes from at least around 14 years old on into my 20s, just taking notes and observing families. And, this is the kind of family, this is the kind of thing I dream of when I think of success.
I love that, and my heart breaks for that all at the same time. I love the fact that you obviously stood up. Enough's enough. Draw the line in the sand. I don't know if I would have done that at 14. Just saying. So, you're like 8 steps ahead of me in that regard. What I hear in that even is this family isn't enough for me. If you can't accept me for who I am, and really it's not like you were flamboyant. You mentioned Terrell Owens when we were talking our Jerry Rice story, that he was very flamboyant, very just stand out. Look at me, 1, 2, 3, look at me. It's not even like you were saying that. It's listen, I'm a part of this family too, and I want respect. And if you're not going to give it to me, guess what? You're not good enough for me either. So there's this really old song. First time I heard it, I wept. Just wept. So I want to read you these lyrics and get your feedback on it. It says, Lord, so, it's like they're singing. I'm not going to sing because nobody wants to hear that. Not even Jerry. Nobody wants to hear that. But it says, Lord, I want to be just like you. Because the singer is referring to his son, because he wants to be just like me. I want to be a holy example for his innocent eyes to see. Help me be a living Bible, Lord, that my little boy can read. I want to be just like you, because he wants to be just like me.
Wow.
That's Phillips, Craig, and Dean, by the way, in case you're wondering. And the song is called I Just Want to Be Like You. When you hear those words, what does that well up inside of you?
Man. One of the things that, and this is one of those moments right now, in fact, is, so I mentioned earlier, I did become a Christian in 2005. There are these moments where I'm just kind of reminded of all the points in time in my life where God was already there, even before I was a Christian. So, we just finished talking about that line in the sand I drew when I was 14. Well, by the time I was 27 years old as an Army sergeant in Baghdad, by then I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten that line in the sand that I drew. I'd forgotten that I wanted to be a father my son could look up to. And I had a daughter on the way while I was deployed in Baghdad. On the day my daughter was born, so I got a letter on April 30th and opened it, and my wife had written me. First letter I'd gotten in over a month and a half and actually almost 2 months. And it was to let me know that she was going to have a C-section and our daughter was going to be born on April 30th. And I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the date on my watch, and it's April 30th. I'm like, holy cow, my daughter's being born. And I look out my window, and there are looters inside our compound stealing stuff. And so that was like my celebration, like, hey, oh, shoot, and grab your weapon, grab your body armor. Hey, guys, get these guys. And what was a bright day for me was also a dark day, because with that, we did catch these guys. I wound up breaking somebody's ribs and then making him watch me make his friends fix the wall they broke. Then there was a family that we caught, and we had stripped the father and the son down and burned their clothes and their money and everything they had, because we thought if we humiliate them enough, they're not coming back. If I can strip that man of his dignity and self-worth, he's not coming back in here. And then we go into another compound and we're chasing looters out of there, because if we can chase them out of there, they're not coming into this one. And then there was like a group of like 3 or 4 looters, and I caught them in a warehouse just right next door where my hooch was. Done the same thing, stripped them all naked, burned their clothes, burned their money, burned their belongings, and said, now fix my wall. And this guy walks up, and he's a soldier, he's a private, brand new to the unit, and he's from a different platoon. And he just says, hey, Sergeant, what's up with their clothes? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, what's up with their clothes? Why did you strip them down? Like, well, because they keep coming back in here and they're not getting it. So if I can't kill them and I'm not going to shoot them without killing them. And so maybe if I embarrass them enough, they'll never come back. What are you doing? And I look at the guy again. The thing that I'm drawn to, because I'm a sergeant and I'm looking at his uniform, and he's got a gold chain necklace hanging out. And he didn't do it on purpose. It's just hanging out because he was kind of sloppy in this moment. And it was a cross on that necklace. He's looking me in the eye. And the look on his face was sadness and compassion, not for me, but for the people on the ground. And I remember saying the most non-graceful thing ever, and that was, hey, you can either help me pull security or you can help them. Which one do you want to do? And he just said, Sergeant, you have a good day. And he walked off. And in that moment, I thought he was surrendering to my authority. And he was surrendering to the ultimatum I gave him. But knowing what I know now about being obedient to the tuggings that God puts on your heart, he was surrendering to God, because now I've had that moment in my own face, not to the degree that he did and the courage that he had. He was just sort of, it was that, well, I did what you told me to, so it's in your hands now. And he kind of walked off. That was the look on his face. That was kind of the shrug in his shoulders, and he walked off. Now, what he didn't see was as soon as he was out of sight, I let those 4 guys go. And that was the last time I did anything like that to anybody in Iraq. And I was there for probably another 3 or 4 weeks. And then once they were gone and I knew that we were secure and safe, and I let our platoon know, hey, there's a hole there, we need to put a guard on it, I went back to my hooch and I clutched the letter from my wife that said our daughter was being born that day. And I just started crying because I also remembered at 14, drawing that line in the sand, saying, I'm never going to become like my uncle. I'm not going to become like my cousins who've lost their way. And here I am at 27 years old, and I have become my uncle. And I've become somebody I'm not going to be proud of to tell my kids about. And I just kept saying over and over again, I don't want to die a monster. I don't want to be a monster anymore. My kids cannot have a dad who's a monster. Yeah, a month later, they're busing us back to Kuwait, letting us defuse for a month, and then we're flying home. And then I got to hold my daughter for the first time, and she was 3 months old, and that was it. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be that monster anymore. I'm going to do everything I can so that monster does not exist. So, yeah, of course, 2 years after that, I finally received Christ, and it wasn't like instantaneous. There were moments where I yelled at my son, and I'm not proud of those moments either, and he remembers them. He's 20 now. He's bigger than me, but he still reminds me, hey, Dad, you remember when I was like, yes, I remember. I'm sorry. And then I'll give him a hug, and I ask if he's okay. He's like, yeah, Dad, I want you to know I love you. I was like, oh, man, I don't deserve this. This kid is too cool. I mean, he's a man now. He's always been that forgiving.
That's good stuff. I love the vulnerability there. I do. I love the ability to say, I again had a moment. I mean, the Bible talks about so often when they would have a monumental, event, they would pile up rocks and they would remember that, and they would do a sacrifice there, like, hey, and they would name it, like, oh, this is the place where, and they'd call it a really cool name, and they'd, it'd be this really long name, but it'd shorten down to this really cool, kind of nickname almost. But no, I love that so much. That's powerful. That's super powerful. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being willing to share that even. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that they've gone through combat. They've gone through some kind of war or struggle, and I just know they're out there holding on to that, thinking they need to just bottle it up and never let it out. But you almost have to face it and just accept that, yes, that happened. It's not who I want to be. I'm going to do something different. And so that's been kind of the mantra there. So yeah, there's the whole thing about performing and doing, not letting people down. That was a big driver in my life. Being a better dad for my kids, better husband to my wife. I think a big driver of that is just the humility that comes with, I'm not perfect, and you don't have to be either. And we're not called to be perfect. We're called to be obedient to God and be connected with Him. So
I want to give you an opportunity in this moment. Obviously, you have a podcast too, and we want to make sure that we give an opportunity really for, if somebody's hearing you right now and they're like, man, is this what his show's like? I want to go listen. We have maybe you don't know this guy yet, but Sean McCoy, he is a podcaster as well in Houston. And so from the Texas area, Texas born, Texas bred, as some would say. But he always says, and he said this to me early on when I was podcasting, find people that chew the same dirt as you are. And I didn't understand that. I still don't get the expression. I don't understand. Maybe you get it better than I do. But I feel like, Jerry, we are kind of chewing the same dirt. We're in the same kind of lane. We're kind of, inspiring stories, really kind of challenging people to be better than what they are. That's why I was excited that we got a chance to sit with you today. So tell us about your show, Beyond the Rut. What's that all about? And just kind of share that with us.
Nice. Beyond the Rut started about 6 years ago. A friend of mine, Brandon Cunningham, he was a pastor. He still is a pastor to this day. And he and I had been friends since about 2005, 2006. 6, he just had it on his heart. He was going to start a podcast to help men kind of tackle the same areas where they seem to be stuck every single weekend. So every Sunday he'd have a guy ask him, how do I get my wife to recognize me or respect me? How do I get my kids to follow my lead? How do I make my job not suck? Like the finances, we're hurting financially. How do we fix that? And it was like repeat, same question, different faces, all from men. And he just thought, gosh, it'd be so great if we can capture that on audio and share it with the world. Or I can just give these episodes to my congregation and say, hey, I'd love to spend 2 or 3 hours helping you unpack this, but start with this episode. So that was kind of like the inspiration to start Beyond the Rut, that we were running into men who were stuck in a rut, either in their faith, their family, their fitness, their finances, or their outlook on future possibility. And we wanted to bring them Jesus in disguise. So kind of like Transformers, robots in disguise, but with Jesus. Because one of the things that seemed to turn guys off in their men's groups were all the cliches and the responses to their problems with a Bible verse. And what they needed were practical steps and real stories of people who've been there. And we just thought, let's have a show where we deliver that. So by about the 16th or 17th episode, we started bringing guests on and showcasing their stories of being stuck in a rut and then having that mindset shift and coming out of that. And then Brandon and I would just bring the Christian perspective without really thumping anybody over the head with cliches or Bible verses. So yeah, for about 6 years, the show's been delivering the message of Jesus without actually thumping you on the head with how to apply biblical principles to your life. 270 episodes, 271 airing the Monday after we have this conversation. The show is now just myself and then our guests. Brandon stepped down because one thing he didn't have that he has now is 5 grandchildren. I heard he's adding a 6th one. Well, he's not adding it. His kids are adding a 6th one. And he has more responsibilities at his church. So I decided I'm going to carry on the torch here at Beyond the Rut. You go into that season of life. We're still friends, of course, but let's start a rumor and make it sound like I fired you or something. And no, okay, we didn't start that rumor, but people did wonder. They're like, hey, did you guys split up? Because like we had bets going that you guys were going to leave your wives for each other. I'm like, no, that was never going to happen. We hung out a lot. So that's Beyond the Rut. You can find us at beyondtherut.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all with the same name, Beyond the Rut. There you'll find some inspirational clips from the episodes that we have. We'll air links to the show, and yeah, it's just the best place to connect with us. So beyondtherut.com, that homepage will have links out to our social media to where our episodes are based and located on those players like Apple Podcast and Spotify and so much more. And what else? And there's also a free goal setting tool. So if you're thinking, gosh, you know what? I want to draw a line in the sand. I want to create and design a life that is beyond the rut. I've got a free tool called Measure It to Make It. And it helps you kind of take inventory of where you are right now in the areas of faith, family, fitness, finances, and your outlook on future possibility. Create some measures on what success would look like, and then create those milestones and baby steps to get there. And you just go to beyondtherut.com/goals. If you just go to beyondtherut.com, there's a tab there as well.
Isn't that fun to highlight the show? I'm always so like uncomfortable in that moment. So it's fun to put somebody else in that, but not me. Just want to put that out there.
The whole time I'm like, did I cover everything? Did I cover everything?
Here's the list in my head. Okay. So Jerry, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think we've had a good conversation. I hope you've had a good, good
time.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Just checking. We got quality control that we got to worry about, but help me with this. I do know just a little bit like over from you is Fort Worth, right? Am I geographically correct in that regard? So there's this college there that I'm kind of fascinated by. That's not North Carolina. I know this is coming as a shock to some. Partly because of their mascot. Like I want to see one in the flesh. So here we go. So help me with this. TCU, which stands for Texas Christian University, TCU.
Horned frogs.
The horned frogs. What the heck is a horned frog? Do you know?
Think it's an actual breed of frogs.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because Texas is pretty dry from like the middle going west. And so I think there's I believe, I got to Google this real quick. Like, did I just make that up? I'm pretty sure.
You might have, but I'll go with it because it sounds awesome.
It sounded cool, right? But we got to do a quick fact check here. Let's see.
All right. So fact check yourself.
Frog.
But don't fact check this. So seating capacity of said stadium. Do you know it by chance? Have you ever been to it?
No, not yet.
Do you know the seating capacity? You haven't been?
Because I just moved here about a year and a half ago, and then the pandemic.
Okay, so you haven't even gone
yet?
No. Okay, fair enough. Well, I'll tell you, the seating capacity, when you do go, might blow your mind. 50,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of people, right? So if somehow, some way we put you 50-yard line at a Horned Frogs game, and you got men from like Promise Keepers of old. I'm sure you remember that. Maybe when you were in high school. I don't know. Maybe not. But what would you say in that moment to those guys that are in the rut?
Yeah.
They're stuck in there. The proverbial foxhole that they can't get out of.
Oh, man, the short statement, because chances are once I get up there, security will recognize they messed up and start chasing me.
No, we built this event. You're the keynote speaker.
Oh,
yeah.
So,
You're the keynote.
So I'm not crashing
You're the
cliffs event. This is
no,
fine.
you're not clashing. No, no, he's in Kentucky. No,
Okay,
don't.
got it.
No.
Yeah, he had.
He's referring to Cliff Ravenscraft for those that didn't know who Cliff is. So just to be clear.
So the thing that would kick this off is that life is too dang short to live it stuck in a rut. That we're placed here with a purpose to make an impact, that you are enough for what God needs you to do right now. You've got the skills, you have the experience, you have the knowledge, and if you look around, you've been placed around the people to either help or to have help you, or to synergize with and go change the world and do it all for God. I drop the mic and no, these are expensive.
I love that. But do you think anyone would listen to you in that moment? Do you feel like?
I think so, because I'm keeping it short. And if they are feeling stuck in a rut, that little reminder that life is too short, I think would be that eye opener. And for me, it was being in combat, seeing war and seeing, people die, and seeing, people who probably had families no longer being there with their families. And so, I think that big stir would be, oh, okay, let's draw that line in the sand.
Yeah, I think that's so important to have that line drawn in the sand and to remind yourself, no matter if it's your family, no matter who it is, that you truly are enough, that your validation doesn't come from those around you, that it really does come from above.
Yes. Bingo.
Jerry, you mentioned you're kind of competitive, right? Did I hear that correctly?
I keep it relatively suppressed, yeah.
Seem like a really chill guy. Like nothing really riles up Jerry. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in that respect.
Oh no, I stay pretty calm these days. I think it depends though. Like, my panic face looks a lot like my calm face. I think I've been told that. Yeah, but the panic is still there. I just don't externalize it.
So you're like an Oregon duck, right? You just paddle like crazy underneath the water.
Yeah,
is that
just
how that
chilling.
goes?
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably shooting a machine gun at me, but I'm like,
chilling like a villain. Fine, it's cool. All right, so here's our game we like to play at the end of our show. It's a game called Senseless. I'm sure you've heard of this and maybe even have wanted to play it because it is the fastest growing game in the country. I think it was trending on Twitter last week. Totally kidding, of course. No, totally kidding. Yeah, we got this cup here. I don't know. Just get you excited about basketball, probably not. But anyway, it's a lot. Tar Heel stuff everywhere. All right, so here we go. Here's our game, Senseless, rolling on your behalf. So what's weird is you got the number 6. So 6 is the wild card, and it is my favorite question we get to ask. So Jerry, you get to have a meal because people were freaking out about dinner. So maybe some people are breakfast people or brunch people or lunch people or midnight snack people. I don't know. But you have to have a meal, or you get to have a meal with one person, dead or alive. Who would it be and why?
Oh man. Like every name is popping into my head.
By the way, I love your bride. I'm sure she's the most amazing person on the planet. However, she does not get to come. Sorry, okay.
Yeah, I assume that was part of the rules.
Some people try to sneak people in. I'm like, no, you and this person.
Gosh, I think I would go with, oddly enough, George Patton.
Okay, I am so intrigued right now. Help us with George Patton. I think I know who he is, but for those that may not know.
Yeah, General Patton. General George S. Patton, I believe. Or is that George C. Scott who played Patton? Oh my gosh. Now I got to Google that and fact check myself. But General Patton, that guy. There was a bluntness about him that, I don't know why, just inspires me in some way. I think because I am so diplomatic and so cautious in relationships, that I don't want to ruin relationships, that sometimes I will sort of slow down my pace towards a goal. And then here's this guy, General Patton, who says, I'll fix the relationships later, and just like barrels through and achieves stuff. So there's kind of this dual intent to, one, learn a little bit about what drives him to go out and just go forth like that and seize the moment and seize the objective. But then I also want to identify the flip side of that. What is that impact on his family and relationships, and what lessons can I learn from that as well? That would be the guy. And plus, I think it would just be fun and colorful to say I had dinner with Patton.
So guys and gals, kids and campers alike, I don't know about anybody else. Has anybody ever not felt like they fit into their family? Anyone? Show of hands right now. If you're driving, keep 10 and 2, but I'm sure all of us on some level have struggled with not feeling enough in our family, feeling like maybe we had to carry everything, feeling like we had to just have the whole family on our shoulders. I don't know about anybody else. I know Jerry was talking about his moment really was when he wasn't feeling enough, in the Army in that moment. But being a military kid, I know that the military is much like a family. And feeling like you let them down, feeling like you weren't good enough, feeling like that is a true, real feeling. So I want to ask you this question today as we wrap up. Here's the question. What can you do to make a positive impact on your family? What can you do? Now, maybe that's something small. Maybe it's just sending an I love you to your mom and dad if they're still around. Maybe that's calling up that proverbial, prodigal brother that hasn't talked to you in 7 years. Not looking at myself in any way, I promise. Asking for a friend, of course, as I always say. But what can you do to make that family member know, listen, I value you, I appreciate you. We might have been knuckleheads when we were growing up, but I love you now. I have that story. Maybe you can have it too. So just remember that as we close out today. And if you do that, if you take that challenge, I, of course, would love to hear about it, opspodcast.com. Just drop me a little note, send me a little message on Instagram. Let me know that you did that. I would be honest with you about my struggles if you're honest with me, right? Isn't that how that works? It's fun. Everybody loves to be honest. But again, as we close out today, just remember this. It's so often forgotten, I feel like. But I think it needs to be repeated daily, at least to myself and maybe others as well. So here it is. Remember this. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.